Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Fergus Dolan here from NALA. Delighted to have you here this morning for our webinar on keeping the learner engaged, employing a variety of learning techniques in the ESOL classroom. My colleague Aoife Mulhall is here helping me with the coordination, and we're delighted to have Angus O'Riordan. Angus is an ESOL tutor with Spirassi in Dublin and the Dublin Adult Learning Centre. Over to you, Angus.
Thank you so much, Fergus, and thank you for inviting me to present today. It's a great honor. So, yeah, guys, great to have you all here. You're so welcome. Delighted to be back again at the NALA conference again this year. So it's always a pleasure to be asked and to present. So delighted to be here. So we're going to talk today about, as you can see on the screen, the title: Keeping the Learner Engaged, Employing a Variety of Learning Techniques in the ESOL Classroom. And I suppose the two key words we're going to consider today on that title would be the word engaged and I suppose variety. So those two ideas we're going to try and follow throughout the presentation this morning. I mean, we're mostly going to look at, which I'll get to in a moment, kind of thinking about learning styles and the particular learning styles of our students in the class. So we're going to try and step away a little bit this morning from the more traditional techniques that we're so used to using in the classroom of kind of your handouts and maybe books, whatever we're using, the more traditional forms of teaching, and kind of trying to think about maybe, as I said, employing a variety of techniques just to sort of spark that interest and curiosity and to keep the learner engaged and to try and a multiplicity of techniques to retain focus really. And yeah, because we know sometimes in the classroom things can get a bit, you know, they can drag on a bit, let's say. So that's the idea of this presentation this morning. And okay, so we're going to get into it. As you can see from the title, Keeping the Learner Engaged, Employing a Variety of Learning Techniques in the ESOL Classroom. And my name's Angus O'Riordan, and as Fergus mentioned, I'm an ESOL tutor with the Dublin Adult Learning Centre and Spirassi. Okay, so we'll go to the first slide here, guys, and we're going to actually start off by looking at this. So title here: Considering the different type of learner styles in your class. Okay. And we're going to think today a lot about this type of the three key learning styles which have been identified: the visual learning style, the auditory learning style, and the kinesthetic learning style. We will touch upon the reading and writing learning style as well, which again is the more traditional form that we're so familiar with and that we often employ in our classrooms. So I think rather than me kind of go through it, I think it's nice to start off with a little bit of video from this gentleman called Neil Fleming. And Neil Fleming is a New Zealander. So this video is taken from a number of years ago. And yeah, he was a teacher himself, and he spoke about, I suppose, his interest for developing this idea, which he calls VARK, V-A-R-K, which is visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. He kind of, it came out of his interest in, you know, what preferences do learners have in how information is absorbed and how it is presented to them, and then I suppose how they can express it back then again, you know, express it back to the tutor or to their fellow classmates. So yeah, we're going to start off by having a little listen to Neil Fleming here, just to kind of give an introduction to what this idea is about the particular type of learners. Okay, let's have a listen to this. Oh, I might actually, sorry guys, I think I'm gonna have to do one quick thing just to turn on the, bear with me for one moment while I turn on the sound. Apologies. Now if I go back here, okay, that should be fine.
A visual learner, somebody who has a, well, we don't actually use the word visual learner because it's a category.
Oh, apologies there.
A visual learner, somebody who has a, well, we don't actually use the word visual learner because it's a category. Okay. Somebody with a visual preference for taking in information and putting out in that way will move to a sheet of paper and prefer to draw something as an explanation. And in terms of taking in information, the student with a V preference would much prefer the teacher to teach using graphs, charts, logos, diagrams, outlines, all those sorts, mind maps, sometimes called memory maps in some places, so that the information comes, if you like, in a symbolic form. or as we would prefer to say, it comes in a graphic form. And if I had my life over again, I would have called it graphic rather than visual, because people get the wrong idea between those two words. So it's really graphic. For the auditory learner, fairly obviously, they like to listen to information, and they seek out teachers who can inform them orally about the things that they want to learn. But there's a flip side to learning from listening, and that is that those who are have an auditory preference, they also want to speak about that. And so a professor needs to provide an opportunity, not just for himself or herself to talk, but also for the student to interact and speak back. Read-write is a category that wasn't in the old format. The old format was just V, A, and K. And I noticed that some of my students weren't covered by those three modes of communication. And there was a fourth mode that they preferred, which was certainly visual, but it was visual text. So they were addicted to diaries and lists and bullet points and words and dictionaries and all those things. In fact, I had a student one day who told me that she had 7 dictionaries, for a dictionary of biology and a dictionary of real words and so forth. And so she was clearly somebody who learnt through the words of others and the textbooks and handouts that professors use. The last category is the most common one for students, not the most common for teachers, but the kinesthetic category or designation that we use. These students learn through examples and case studies and reality, concrete things that they can get a grip on or handle. Those are the sorts of words they use when they talk about things. Get a grip on this and let's handle this. So they are people who learn through all of their senses to understand something. And they are particularly strong when the teacher uses their own experience, that is the student's own experience.
Fantastic. Okay, so that was Neil Fleming talking there about the various learning styles that we're going to tease apart a little bit more as we go through the presentation. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next slide here, which just discusses what we're going to think about in today's presentation. We're going to mostly focus on techniques which support the visual learners, the auditory learners, and the kinesthetic learners. And I suppose the idea is that, you know, we're not just thinking about one particular type of learner in our lesson. We're kind of thinking about all of them combined, and how maybe that multisensory approach can be employed, you know. So it's not just going to be a case of we focus on one style. And I think, to be honest, I think a lot of these techniques and approaches can complement each other. There's often crossover between them as well. So I think what works for a visual learner can also work for auditory, and vice versa, kinesthetic as well. We will touch upon reading and writing learning styles towards the end a little bit, and just some consideration about how we might you know, develop our text in the classroom, particularly for ESOL literacy learners. And then I suppose, look, there's also talk, I mean, there's a multiplicity of information out there about various learning styles. They do consider that there's also the idea of a logical learner, people who like that kind of more mathematical process, the interpersonal or social learning, people who are very good with emotions and understanding feelings and working with people. And then the naturalistic learner who feels more at home learning in nature. So yeah, but as I say, we're going to focus mostly on visual learners, auditory learners, and kinesthetic learners for this presentation. Okay, so moving on to the first one, which is the visual learner. And we can see here that we have 3 sort of things I've grabbed from sources on the internet, and we're just going to read through them. So the first one, just to get a feel for what this visual learner is and some of the key characteristics that I suppose they can identify with. So a visual learner is someone who learns best through visual means. Obviously, they prefer looking at things to absorb information rather than listening to it or using their hands. So that's just from index.com. The second point there, information is associated with images. Typically remember what they read rather than what they hear. Learn from seeing things. Use of diagrams, charts, graphs to understand ideas and concepts. Favor taking notes. Use color to organize information, may prefer written instructions and verbal ones. Okay, so we'll tease this out a little bit more in a moment. And then the last point there, that's right, that's from study.com. And the last point is, if you are a visual learner, you learn by reading or seeing pictures. You understand and remember things by sight. You can picture what you are learning in your head, and you learn best by using methods that are primarily visual. And that's from educationplanner.org. Okay, so they're just some of the key characteristics that we consider when we think about a visual learner. And just to move on from that, this is a nice visual that we're going to use for each learner. I just, again, pulled it from the internet, but you can see here, and this is something perhaps when Fergus sends on the slides, you can look at in more detail. So I won't go through it all now, but just, it's a nice visual. On the one side, you have the characteristics. On the other side, you have learning tips. So again, just the headings, sees to learn, likes images, takes notes, looks around. And just the last part there, struggles with spoken directions or spoken instructions. And then some of the learning tips would be watch. So we're going to think about that, visual aids, videos, etc. Visualize, allow the learner or permit the learner to encourage the learner to visualize what they hear. Write it down, you know, allow time for note taking. Drawing, which is an interesting one. Some learners do like to, I'm a bit of a doodler myself, so some people like to draw what they hear, new vocabulary, and we'll think about mind maps and things like that as well. And then use of color, which I think is an obvious one, but a really, really important one to remember. Okay, moving on, just to think about what can assist a visual learner in the classroom. So we're going to think here about things like some of the key things that we could use in our classroom to assist with the visual learner. Obviously images, of course, that goes without saying, they're visual videos, and we're going to think about videos now. That's an important part of this presentation. Graphs, charts, diagrams, or mind maps, again, very colorful and full of the visual. Color coding, I think syntax is really important. You know, perhaps using various colors to identify various parts of a sentence. You have your subject, verb, object there, time phrase, quite a simple sentence. But again, just using that color in the classroom to bring alive the language. Slides, of course, visual aids, flashcards, very useful. I think the next one is really important, allowing time for note taking and writing down instructions. That's really helpful for the visual learner, just to allow that time for note taking. Use of realia, you know, bringing in colorful, real life materials, so that again it sparks curiosity, familiarity as well if they're used to seeing those things. So again, another way to bring a sort of a visual element into the classroom. Permit learners to sit near the front. I mean, it is said that visual learners like to be closer to the tutor and closer to the whiteboard or whatever you're using. So that's something that, you know, if that seems to be works for the learner, so be it, and allow them that space. Incorporate a variety of color into presentations and explanations. Again, a bit of an obvious point, but I think, you know, having your 4 colored markers, I think is a really important thing. And, you know, I always kind of try to have my green and blue and red and black markers. And it's obviously, if you have an interactive whiteboard, they're there, you don't need to worry about it. But on a more traditional whiteboard, you obviously need the markers. So you can pester your coordinator, wherever it is, to keep a good stock of colored markers. Allow time for learners to draw or illustrate new language. You know, not for everyone, but I think that idea where learners do sometimes, you know, if they can perhaps do a quick sketch of what they're learning. And again, very useful for mind maps, which we'll see in a moment. Very useful. And then again, just in terms of instructions, of course, you know, written instructions as opposed to oral ones, excuse me, but using perhaps diagrams. I kind of think of that, you know, the IKEA instruction booklet, which is so full of sometimes very confusing visual aids or diagrams, but, you know, that kind of idea where you have a simple, perhaps guide to instructions if need be, or just that can maybe complement the written instructions as well. Okay, so moving on, and we're going to see here just a video. So obviously we know in the classroom we're quite used to using images, but I suppose it's so, I mean, just as a way, as a springboard to have perhaps put those images to a more sort of an idea to making moving images. I mean, there are still static images, but putting them into something like iMovie or Movavi, I think, is another one that Android phones use. And very simple, very easy to do, and just putting them in and then putting them through the iMovie and adding a bit of music over them and using it. Again, look, a lot of these video techniques are going to require perhaps an interactive whiteboard, or perhaps an interactive TV, or some type of projector, but or laptop. If it's a smaller group, you could just use a laptop in the classroom. But I suppose anything you do in your phone can immediately be transferred to a laptop then, and presented on a larger whiteboard if that is something that you have in your classroom. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this. I won't play it all. Well, maybe we will. We'll see how we are. This is just a quick short video I made on iMovie, just again pulling images and using it as a more sort of a movie technique. So let's have a quick look at this.
Angus, could you turn up the volume on it a little bit? The last one was quite low.
Oh, I will, of course. Yeah. Hopefully that could be a little bit louder. That's as loud as it will go. Great. So that's just really, it's a 3-minute video, it's images of springtime, but it just brings it a little bit more to life. So as opposed to putting them on a sheet of paper and handing it out to the classroom, presenting it to the class in that way as an alternative. If we move along, I'll just move along the video very briefly, just to kind of get towards the end, because what I've included in it as well are a few kind of proverbs or saying about spring that are quite nice, that can be used as a springboard as well for discussion. So very simple idea, but just putting your images into iMovie or Movavi or whatever it is, there's a number of them out there, making a very short video, the music on top. Again, it triggers that sort of, sparks the curiosity, as opposed to just having it on a traditional sheet of paper. Sorry, was the volume okay there, Fergus? Was that a little bit louder? Great. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, that was fine.
So any kind of follow-up, look, there's a multiplicity of things you could follow that up with, but just something about maybe for the more, traditional literacy learner, you could have an idea where they're watching the video and they just tick what they hear. You could even have it in image form, the same image, or in a word form, and they just tick it as they go along just to recognize it. Or perhaps in a more pair work way, you could have a simple few check-in questions, write down 3 colors that you see of the flowers, 3 animals that you can see. A couple of questions. I didn't show the whole video, but it goes into Patrick's Day. It goes into a little bit about Easter time. So it's just really all about spring, true or false. So simple check-in questions, and it could be a nice springboard warmer at the beginning of your class to get them engaged, and get them ready for that topic, whatever the topic could be. I mean, I chose spring there just because that was something we were doing a couple of weeks ago, but it can be anything. It can be anything from food to transport. And then of course a great idea for follow-up discussion as well about the theme that you're engaging with there and then. Okay, we're going to move on. Now this is something that a colleague of mine, Emer Gil-Martin from Sprassi, has set up, and I just wanted to bring your attention to it because I have participated in it myself. And so this is something called listenhere.ie. It's a new website. I know Fergus, actually you sent this out a couple of months back to the ESOL tutors, but it's a new web platform where they're basically asking people to send in short videos, and I'll show you my one in a moment. It's a bit embarrassing, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. And then what they do is they put it into their magic, speech technology machine, and then they build a lesson plan from it. So it's a really good way, again, to engage your learners through the visual, the auditory, and even text as well, which we'll see in a moment. You can read that there. I mean, it just talks about what their idea is. I'll just read the second point. We're making lessons about every corner of life in Ireland using local content. We collect stories, chats, information, film, TV, and radio from people and organizations all around Ireland. Then we use state-of-the-art speech technology and language learning know-how to build free lessons to help learners understand life in Ireland, improve their English, maybe take on a bit of Irish, brave, and see how life works here. So that's kind of their idea. That's their ethos behind what they're doing. So I'm going to show you guys what I did. I got my son to make a 1-minute video of me while I was out for a walk one day, sent it in, and then they sent it back to me like this. So we'll just see if I can share it for you here now. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, I might have to very quickly, it's not coming up on my screen, so bear with me for one moment, guys. I'm just going to stop this, open it here, and okay, bear with me for one moment, please. I think it's actually logged me out. That's what the issue is. Now, if I go here, and this one, right, that should be it. Let's go back to sharing again. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is the one I sent in, and I'm just going to play it to you here now. Okay, let's have a look at this.
Angus tells us how he likes to relax. Listen carefully.
My name is Angus, and I'm a teacher. I spend most of my week inside, in the classroom, with my students. So, at the weekend, I like to go outside. I live near the Dublin mountains. So, at the weekend, I usually go for a walk in the countryside or in a forest.
I told you it was embarrassing. So I won't play the whole thing, guys. It goes on for a minute. It's just really me talking about what I like to do at the weekend, go for walks, etc. But I'm just going to go on towards the end if I can. I'm not sure if I actually can. I think we have to watch it all.
Quiet,
it's only a minute.
Not so many people around. It helps me to relax. I usually go walking with my family. It's good to spend time with your family at the weekend. The reason I like the countryside is because you can see many animals. I can see sheep, cows, and different types of birds. There are also beautiful flowers in the countryside and lots of trees in the forest. It's a great place to be. I recommend it. If you feel like you want to go outside and relax, I think there's no better place than going for a walk in the countryside.
Now, answer the questions.
So it brings up then, it kind of goes through a whole list of questions and it asks a variety of questions there. If I can go back up. Sorry, it's kind of tricky to navigate at the moment. Yeah, if I go back up here, so questions, and it also has an audio as well. So what does Angus like doing at the weekend? You click on the question. There are 6, I think there are 6 in total different categories. If I go next, or if I leave here for a moment. Yeah, anyway, but it basically goes to a variety of different ways that you can actually listen, and it checks in through kind of text-based questionnaires afterwards. So I just think it's a really good way to bring yourself into the conversation, and you know, send in a video. Could be from yourself, could be from anyone. Let them do their magic and take it from there. And then again, you can use it in the classroom. It's something, again, of course, you can forward on to your learners for them to work at home. Okay, we're going to move on. Again, sticking with the video, guys, this is just something that I feel, again, a kind of an inspirational style video, a warmer closer before tea break, springboard. This is my colleague from the Dublin Adult Learning Centre. She's involved in a community garden. And again, it's just a short video pulled from YouTube, but it's just, I find it quite inspiring, and it's nice, it's visual, it's an Irish person speaking. It also has subtitles. Just have a look at this for 30 seconds. It's again, it's kind of that idea to spark curiosity.
Hi, I'm Tracy Foran and I'm a member of Mud Island Community Garden. Today I'm going to do a window box using different plants that we bought today. When making a window box, put some compost at the bottom, make sure there's some drainage, put some compost in, then add your plants.
So again, you know, it's just one of those ideas where you're bringing video into the classroom. Again, if you, I mean, of course, it does require some type of multimedia to present it. But I think it's just a nice way as a closer before break time, closer at the end. And again, that springboard for discussion, because I know a lot of our learners live in flats, apartments, that idea of the window box, having your plants outside your window or in the class, in your apartment. A nice little, just again, to kind of engage the learner and keep their interest, okay? Okay, the photo essay, moving on, we're keeping with the visual here. Photo essay is a really nice thing to use in the classroom. And again, this photo essay here is something that what I'll do is I'll send it on with the slides to Fergus, and he can attach it. So this is a photo essay whereby the idea of just giving out a sheet of paper to learners, there's no writing on it whatsoever. Well, we can see education around the world, but it's just images, you know, at the beginning, and then the learners can discuss it. They can pick what they want from it, ideally in color if that's possible. I know it's not always possible, but it would be great, obviously, in color. And then, of course, you can follow that up with a multiplicity of tasks, questionnaires, you know, discussion around education around the world. This is just, as I say, I'll attach it into the presentation slides, and it just talks about the different education around the world. There's also a video that goes with this as well. These images are actually taken from a video that's also on YouTube, which you can attach as well, and you know, brings those images to life as well, which is a lovely thing. So just that idea of the photo essay where, you know, you're just cutting out on the words and using images, you know, that idea, and then for discussion, for questions, comparatives as well. Okay. Okay, we'll move on. Use of smart art, we all have it now. It's on, you know, this is from Microsoft Word, and again, it's just using the images to back up the language, kind of like that instructional visual aid, you know. So this is just an idea of making a pancake, using the language for instruction, kind of thinking about that, those imperatives, you know. So using the image to complement the words. You know, again, doesn't take very long to make. And I think the idea, once you make these things, you have them then. They're in your library. You can revert back to them anytime, you know. So, and again, everything now, you know, ideally presented on a large scale, but this was something that would work on a traditional handout as well. And it's got nice little arrows as well to follow it for the learner to follow along. So keeping with the visual. Mind maps, of course, we've used them. We all use them. Again, colorful, visual, something that can be, you know, learners can do together. I think that's a nice idea. When we get onto the kinesthetic, we can think about how learners can go into groups together, handing out an A2 sheet of paper, a couple of markers. They can all add their ideas together, you know. Or, of course, it can be done through brainstorming, the teacher on the board, a more traditional way of doing it. Learners shouting out and writing like that. But again, the colorful as well. I think these are nice images here, using the different colors. We can see the one with emotions, you know, the blue for happy, the orange for sad. And then the one down below, we can see the person is actually using little sketches or little drawings as well, illustrations to add life to the new vocabulary. Jamboard or Padlet, which we're going to look at shortly when we have our discussion at the end. I think it's a really nice modern way of that idea of brainstorming. Again, it's collaborative as well, if that's possible, or even just, you know, the idea where learners are shouting out ideas and the teacher can do it on their laptop at the top of the class and present them on the board. Images. So this one about travel. I mean, the nice thing about Jamboard is I'm more familiar with Jamboard personally, but the nice idea is that you have a variety of pages for different themes, and the first page could just be images. The second page might be moving on to different types of language, you know. So again, you know, it's collaborative, it's interactive, it's visual. I think the nice thing about Jamboard is you got each those little post-its, which it kind of just brings that color to life, and you can throw images up and little drawings as well. And yeah, very useful. Padlet, a similar idea, of course. This is a nice one that I've started using. I heard about it at the beginning of our infamous lockdown at this stage, called canva.com, and it's just about making posters and flyers. So again, it's quite like for a very you know, very much at a beginner level of graphic design that I would be. It's a very learner friendly website. It's free to a certain degree. There's kind of a paid option and a free option, but the free option, you know, it's just about developing posters, flyers, and just a more visual presentation of things you could hand out in the classroom. The nice thing about this website is there's a ton of stuff that's actually already been done that's free to download, you know. So for example, the one you're seeing there with Barack Obama, that's something that I didn't make that one. That's free to download. There's some really nice kind of motivational ones as well. And the one that you can also see about the Procedures for self-quarantine is also a free one. So it's just a nice website, canva.com. I've started using it a little bit for, especially if you want to give out sort of memos in the class or questionnaires or, you know, some kind of information about holiday time, and you want to bring it to life. It's a different way, a more traditional way of doing it. Over here on the left, you can see a certificate of attendance that I designed. And again, to be honest, and like I'm really speaking from a perspective of I have no training in this whatsoever. It is very learner friendly, and just to play around with it as well. And as I say, there's a free option, paid option, but the free option is the one I use. And it's, again, another way to bring that color into your classroom. Okay, we're going to move on because I am conscious of time, and time is slipping away. So auditory learner, characteristics. Okay, we're going to get into perhaps some of the ways that we can engage the auditory learner in the classroom. So learn by hearing and listening. You understand and remember things you have heard. You store information by the way it sounds, and you have an easier time understanding spoken instructions than written ones. Okay, and that is from educationplanner.org. Some of the key characteristics again. Auditory learners retain information better when it is delivered through speech or sound rather than the written form. Again, these are kind of obvious points, but just good to be mindful of them. And then the final point, the auditory learner learns, the auditory learning style means a person learns best by listening. Music, video clips, and conversations are ideal way of learning. So again, just bringing that auditory aspect into the classroom. And I think that's, I mean, again, with the onset, with the kind of development of multimedia, I think we're using that more and more. I mean, I think through our phones and tablets and laptops, it's so easy now to just make a quick recording and then present it to the classroom. So let's move into some ways, guys, we can do this. That visual again, this is from a website. Again, when Fergus sends on the slide, have a look at that in more detail. I won't go through it now, but it just kind of gives some of the key characteristics again. It's a nice visual to think about the auditory learner. So how can we assist the auditory learner? So very simply, the learner or tutor reads out loud. Encourage or permit the learner to sit near the front so sound is clear. Record phrases, new language, or an entire lesson. You know, ask the learner, you know, if they would like to record it on their phone, that's absolutely fine. Both learner and tutor repeat new language. Participation in discussions. Use of songs and music. Participation in and observation of oral role plays. Use of rhyme and jingles if you feel like getting particularly creative. Ongoing use of repetition. Call on learners. That's a really important point. Call on them and allow them to respond. You know, listen to the questions, allow them to respond back as well. That's a key aspect, supposedly, of the auditory learner, that they have the ability or the opportunity to respond back to the question. Allow room for verbal questioning, and also the idea of pair work and the study buddy, where they're sharing, they're listening, they're speaking. You know, that idea where they're engaging through listening and speaking. Info can be repeated and exchanged. Okay. So just this idea of recording devices, and I think again there's so many out there. They're everywhere. Obviously on our phones, we have the iPhone has the voice memo. On the Android phone is the voice recorder. You were probably both familiar with those two little icons on our phones. But there's so many online. I mean, even on this the PowerPoint, of course, you can just add a little. If you're doing a presentation on PowerPoint, you can throw in a little audio here, like I did. This one here, I just play it very quickly.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the NALA ESOL Conference 2021.
So that's easily done. You just press the recording option on your PowerPoint.
And welcome to the NALA ESOL Conference 2021.
Let me stop that. It's gone. Okay, thank God it's short. We also have, guys, a multiplicity of online ones. So if I just click on this one here, this is a nice one, which is, now I need to just share this, bear with me. Hopefully you can all see that. Great. Okay, so this is one that's free online voice recorder. It's a very simple one to use. You just literally click the record option. So good morning, everyone. How are you today? We are now at the NALA ESOL conference. Okay, pause it. And then, of course, you can, I just move my Zoom out of the way. Oh, yeah, sorry, we have to press stop on it. Excuse me. And then it can just be played back. So good morning, everyone. How are you today? We are now at the NALA ESOL conference. Okay, so very simple. It can be edited very easily. You can just drag this to edit it. Okay, and then of course it can be saved as well and downloaded over here and saved onto your files if you wanted to use it again and again. But it's a nice way as well. If you have a laptop in the classroom, you can ask learners to come up to the front. And because you know yourself, it's always the way that they're terrified of hearing their voice back again, but you can just do a quick recording. And perhaps it's something as well that if you feel like you don't want to use your mobile phone in the classroom because it's your own personal device, you don't want to use it. Perhaps the laptop is a little bit more of an impersonal way to record the learner with their permission, of course, you know. But it is just a tool that we can use in the classroom. And I think that idea of listening and recording is becoming more prominent as we're now just such a multiplicity of tools at our hands. Okay, let me go back. Okay, we'll move on. This one, I'm sure some of you have heard of Book Creator. This is something that DALC, Dublin Adult Learning Centre, started using at the beginning of the kind of lockdown last year. I'm just going to show you guys, and again, this is something that will be attached with the presentation. But Book Creator is a really nice way to have, again, to kind of complement the visual and the auditory at the same time. So if I just click on this, this is my Book Creator. I'm going to go, if I can, into here. Yeah, hopefully you can all see that. So this is, I've only got 2 books I've made myself in my library, but again, it's very learner friendly, very easy to use. So if I click on this one, and I'm just going to have open that. This is one about my journey in Dublin bus. The reason why it's nice, again, it's so visual, and you can also, of course, listen to it as well. You can play it. Okay, so if I play it like this, and you can listen to it, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this.
My journey on Dublin bus. I take the bus every morning to college. My bus is the number 15. I usually wait about 10 minutes for the bus. I don't like waiting for the bus.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there just for time. But again, that's something I developed, guys. Again, using those kind of recognizable images, a theme that is you know, authentic and that the learners can relate to as well. If I go back, and hopefully you can see this, go back to my books. This is another one I did, which is about mobile phone. But the reason why I like this one is that you can actually put your own voice in it, which is really nice as well. There's a facility where you can record yourself and use your own voice. So just have a listen to this.
My most important possession is my mobile phone.
Okay, and then if we move on, sorry, I'm just, over here. And then next page here. And again, you can just have on each page a little audio.
I use my phone every day. I use it for so many things.
Okay, and again, you can add in, this one is a little bit more perhaps for younger learners. It's kind of that comic book style Book Creator. But I would encourage people, again, it's a free site to use. The only thing I'd say is it's only used for in my experience, only used for laptops, not for mobile. So just to be conscious of that. Okay, so it's a laptop or app that we use. I don't seem to be able to get it on my mobile, but perhaps it's my own lack of tech knowledge there. Okay. If we go back, okay, we're going to go back to our presentation and inspirational talk. So TED, again, so many free talks on TED, TED.com. And the reason why I like TED is that, look, it is a little bit for the higher learner. I absolutely appreciate that. But the reason why I like TED is that I think it's, you know, you're hearing from people that I suppose are a little bit more recognizable to the learner, you know, the accents. And the really nice thing about TED is that when you listen to one of their talks, they also have the subtitles, and in this case, 23 languages and subtitles, or the transcript as well can also be downloaded in 23 different languages, obviously English included. So, you know, it's a really nice way. Let's just have a little listen to this for a moment. Again, it's visual too. Oh, I jumped one there. Sorry, guys. See, can I go back? Yeah, this one.
I'm here to tell you how change is happening at a local level in Pakistan, because women are finding their place in the political process. I want to take you all on a journey to the place I was raised, Northwest Pakistan, called Dir. Dir was founded in the 17th century.
Okay, so that's just a Pakistani lady talking about her cultural experience in Pakistan. So, but again, I would encourage people to have a look at TED. So many different variety of topics and themes and speakers. But I just think it's nice because of that idea where it's visual, It's free. There's all sorts of options to download, to get transcripts in a variety of language if that's the case. And I think just that idea where the learners, our ESOL learners, can see someone who's a bit more recognizable to them than perhaps, I don't know, a European or an American from one of those classic EFL books. Okay, so that's another reason why I like it. Okay, podcasts, of course. Now, this is something perhaps you guys can discuss in your groups very shortly. But podcasts are something that are becoming more prominent as well. Just identifying two, guys. One is on BBC, The English We Speak, which is kind of 3-minute short podcast. It's a bit more, again, it's kind of higher level, which I suppose podcasts would be. But this is talking about more, the first one is about more colloquial phrases in the English language. The second one down there is about, it's a longer one. Again, they're mostly at an intermediate level, but they're talking about new vocabulary. It's a long-running series called 6-Minute English, and it's topical discussion and new vocabulary. So let's just have a listen to one here. I'm going to move, this one is about key worker. It's kind of quite nice. I'm going to move on a little bit.
This is a download from BBC Learning English.
A worker is someone who provides an essential service, like a doctor or nurse.
Yep, that's more logical. I get confused sometimes.
You do. Let's listen to these examples while you get rid of those keys.
My friends Jorge and Zdenka are both key workers. They do the amazing job of teaching kids. Michiko is a key worker.
Okay, I'll stop it there. But again, it's just talking about that idea of key worker. So 3-minute podcast, easily downloadable, free on the BBC English We Speak. And then the other one is called 6-Minute English. And perhaps that's something you can bring to the guys, you can discuss. And maybe you have some ideas of interesting podcasts that you might have used in your classrooms when we get together in a moment. Okay, music as well, of course, is a big one. Again, I find music is a really good way to close the week out. You know, it's a nice way to finish on a Friday or Thursday, whatever day you're on. Particularly, again, I think everyone loves music. There's so many different ways to use it. But I think what's nice now on YouTube that you have a lot of videos where they put the lyrics on the screen, you know. I won't show you now just because of time, but the link I've put on the thing, you can click on that link and it will bring you onto YouTube where you can watch Ed Sheeran singing Perfect, but it's the lyric version. So it's basically the video where the lyrics are coming up on the screen, and you know you can have a handout with this where you know you've got 2 different words. Learners have to listen and choose the correct word. You can discuss some of the new vocabulary that comes up. You can discuss the meaning of the song, the message behind the song, and even if you're feeling particularly brave, you can perform it. If one of you are feeling, you know, have that musical ability, bring in your guitar, whatever it is. And I just feel, I think music is just a nice way to close out a lesson. I think it's a nice way, particularly on Friday when people are heading off for the weekend, you know, send them away with a bit of music. I think is always a good way to go. And again, it's auditory. And if you get onto that YouTube lyric video, it's visual as well. Okay. Kinesthetic, guys. Now I am a bit conscious that we're getting a bit close on time, so I'll go as quick as I can to the last few slides. Kinesthetic learner characteristics very quickly. So this is all about touch and movement. Okay, they retain learner information more effectively when they can move, interact with their environments. And also, guys, they have that idea where they're actively engaged in the learning. So by doing, by testing, by trial and error. So it's a bit more non-traditional, that idea of using your hands, you know, and learning by doing. Okay, sometimes known as a tactile learner. Again, we have that visual, which you can look at in more detail when it's sent on. And what can assist a kinesthetic learner? Okay, so some of the key things that we can assist. So clapping or banging out syllables, cutting up words and images and making posters, reconnecting parts of words or parts of sentences, using unifix letter cubes, experiential real word recognizable examples. So I think that idea where it's just a lot more real world, you know, it's recognizable. Encourage movement and interaction through group questionnaires, running dictation games. Encourage learners to go outside and maybe use their camera phone to document new vocabulary. Ball throwing activities. Permit learners to change location in the classroom if that makes them comfortable. Don't restrict someone to the same seat all the time every single day. Stretching or breathing warm-up techniques. Encourage note-taking and even tracing words with finger as well. Okay. So moving on, some just visuals here from the classroom. This is from Dalk. So just cutting up words and, you know, It's a very simple activity, just getting the first letter sounds or blends, whatever it is, and listening to the sound. That would be more a low-level class. Those Unifix cubes can be handy. I don't think they're the cheapest thing in the world to get, but if you, again, pester your coordinator, there might be something that you could have a supply of. Again, perhaps working better with a smaller group or even one-to-one. Role plays, group work, just that movement, that idea of getting people out of their chair, interacting with each other, putting people in group, giving the nice big sheet of paper, you know, getting people active, moving. Now, this is a little bit ambitious, perhaps, but, you know, something that's becoming, you know, yeah, it's certainly a tool. Using Lego for building sentences. That idea where Lego represents various parts of language. You know, your particular color for verb, particular color for adjective, noun, preposition, whatever it is. Or, of course, you could just use colored paper or Post-its if that need be. But I just thought that's an interesting one. You know, probably works best on a one-to-one idea or a very small group. But again, you need a nice big table and labeling the Lego, and just that idea of constructing the sentence, you know, learners kind of having that more tangible feel to it. Okay, read write. As I said, I said we touch upon it very quickly, which we will. Just very here again, nice visual. But I think with the read write, what's important to remember from an ESOL perspective, sorry, apologies, is considering a text. When you're going to develop your text for an ESOL student, some of the key ways we might develop our text. Again, you can go to this in more detail when Fergus sends on the slides, but just some ideas to think about, guys. You know, just at their level, you know, make sure it's nothing too unfamiliar, that the grammar structures are not too unfamiliar. Again, size of font, you know, wording, spacing, images, all of those things, you know, and perhaps a longer text can be broken into shorter paragraphs, perhaps keeping it to one page. Again, you could have an audio recording of it, you know, you could play it, listen, learners read out, so many ways. But I just think with our ESOL learners, we do have to be mindful of what we're giving them and not overburdening them with new vocab, unfamiliar grammar points, and just something that they can relate to as well. It's motivating, it sparks their curiosity, and they can, you know, that is something that recognizable to their daily lives and not something completely removed from what they're familiar with. Now, Google Forms is a lovely way to kind of bring the elements together. Just very quickly, I'm going to go into this very quickly and show you a Google form which I've used for. So if we have a look at this for a moment, guys, kind of thinking about a weekly assessment idea of using Google Forms. And again, it's visual. You can add video in. You can put a text in. It's multiple choice. It's just that sort of, again, shifting the scope for the learner, you know. Visual as well down here. What can you see? So I find Google Forms a lovely way to bring diversity and variety into how you might, you know, assess the learners at the end of the week. Okay. Now, almost done. What type of learner are you? You know, so many websites you can go on, guys, and test your own. What type of learner are you? I did 3 of them. One I did on varklearn.com, on chegg.com, and arden.ac.uk. And you look, there's multiple ones out there. According to them, I'm pretty much a visual learner. That's what's coming back. They're pretty simple questionnaires. Have a look at them, see what you think yourself. Okay, follow the links on the slides. Or you could make your own, guys. You could make your own questionnaire. What type of learner are you? You could make your own one. You know, obviously bring the language down, because the ones I was doing, the language was at quite a high level. So bring it down to the level of the learners. Make it, again, on this example, using Google Forms. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. And I'm so sorry it dragged on. I'm apologetic, everyone, and thank you for